Good morning, everyone. It's your boy Jay Card with Bistro Buddy, and it's 4 a.m. and I'm obsessed. And I thought I would share this video and talk about it with you. So this is a video from Inbound, building a community with Dharma Shah, one of the founders from HubSpot, and Sam Parr. And I think the video just speaks for itself. So we're just going to let it play and roll.
What a lot of people don't realize the work that actually goes into it. Most communities, occasionally, I own another community for short-term Airbnb rentals. That one kind of took off a little bit on its own, but 9 out of 10 times, a community involves a ton of work, like literally just like output. The creator, you or me or whoever is doing output. A lot of people don't know this, but Dharmesh is like a domain. What's the right word?
We'll use domain investor. That's a
domain investor. He owns all these domains like Cambridge.com.
So am I, by
he owns
the way,
VennDiagram.com. And I was like, what are you going to do at Venn Diagram?
Some of them soon.
And he goes, I'm going to create a community for people who like Venn diagrams. And so what I want to know, I told people a little bit about what I do. When you're starting a community from scratch, what are you actually doing? What's the actual work? I don't care about the fluffy, like, oh, I'm creating a place that's like welcoming. You know, like that. Of course, that's important.
Creating a place for you to
What words are you typing?
I think the key is you have to actually do the work. I think this is where lots of would-be community creators kind of fail. They think it's enough just to host the space. It's like throwing a party. It's like, oh, I'm going to have people come in, and they're all cool people, and serendipitously they're going to create value, and things will happen. And sometimes that happens. I believe in kind of engineered serendipity. Right? That says, okay, can you maximize the chances that people that should be connecting will? And even if it's a 5, 10, 50-person community, you have to be in it. You have to kind of know who those community members are, and you have to treat them. And it's hard to do this because in most cases, when you start a community, you're making zero money. Right? You're paying the hosting. You're spending a lot of money, but you're not really making that much money. Usually most communities start off as this kind of free thing. But you have to treat them as customers. Like flat out, you have to say, oh, these people are here to get some amount of value.
So what are you doing? You're making introductions? You're like, hey,
Either make
Brian,
introductions, I will go research that particular person. It's like, oh, here's what they're looking for. They founded this startup or whatever. I will kind of know those people.
And you'll make introductions?
I will.
I do that all the time.
And
oftentimes
sounds like something I've been doing.
Introducing I'm adding you to each other.
Well, and that's the other thing. So the early days in a community, you do cash in the favorites, right? And I've done that for every community I've ever started. That says, okay, I know these people. And it's like, I've never asked you for anything in my life, but can you please join this community and just do a post because people love you and it'll be awesome. And it works, right? So you have this, things are moving along. You know, it's like, okay, well, you know, my mom joined, my brother joined. Now I need somebody else, you know, other people. And when you get those kind of celebrities or influencers or people that are kind of recognized names and brands, it helps you kind of get this inflection point. And then it'll drop back again, but you'll find a new floor with each one of those bumps. It's a little bit
each one of those bumps.
Every now and then you have an article
that's where we're at with Bistro
big, maybe 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20. But then it'll spike and then it'll decay, but the floor will now be higher than it used to be.
Yeah. Right.
Continuously.
So we were kind of nerding out on copywriting. And the reason that's related here is because copywriting is kind of like the root skill set in a lot of these things. You know, having a community is kind of like it's figuring out what aligns us all together and how do we create this us versus the world mentality and how do I get people to engage? You know, it's basically a marketplace. I need to create liquidity.
About your business.
On one side of the marketplace, it's people consuming content. On the other side of the marketplace, it's people creating content. And I need to have liquidity in that marketplace. And one of the ways to do that is to do copywriting. And you said something interesting to me. You said, and you're a developer. You were the CTO. That was your role you're still the CTO, right?
Still CTO.
So you're an engineer. And yet you said copywriting you think
is the
most underrated skill of all the skills one you are in your career. Read books, watch videos, practice the craft, and you can get good at it. So even not professionally, if you're writing a dating profile, you can improve your presence by 10x by learning copywriting because that's what all of it. It's all copywriting. It's being able to.
I remember I used to run hot dog stands, and I was like, my hot dogs aren't that special. I need to use words to get people to think that I'm more special and for them to come buy this commodity. And then my friend Neville told me about copywriting, and I was like, wait. me selling a hot dog to someone is just me going to them. Copywriting is me doing that to like an infinite amount of people. So I started
Infinite
learning
amount of
copywriting.
people.
And the way that I learned it was I found the best sales letters of all time and the
Worldwide.
best books and
Bistro
the
Buddy
best
is worldwide,
like
global.
sales copy of all time. And for 6 months, every day, I spent an hour handwriting, copying it word for word, other people's stuff. Just like the way people learn how to play instruments. You play other people's
Practice.
music for a long time. And then eventually you're like, oh, I love how this band does this and this band does this. I'm going to merge this together and make my own
Put
thing. And
one
that's
foot
kind
in
of how
front of
I
the
learned
other.
how to
That's all
do
you have to
copywriting.
do.
How did you learn?
Reading books and then just practicing the craft and looking at the data that says, okay, here's what works. Like once you write, I would posit to you, and you've probably heard this
Data
from
and
other people,
practice.
and it happens to be true. If you're writing blog posts or creating YouTube videos, whatever you're doing, you're likely not spending enough time on the
AI is
subject
not
line in
going to
the
do it for
email
you,
or
to
the
be
blog
real.
post title or the
It's
video
about
title,
catching the right
because
titles, the
that's
right
the hook. It's like the
topics,
rest of it won't
connecting the
matter.
right
Like if you could
people,
have the most brilliant content in the world,
right
and
time.
if that first sentence doesn't grab them, if the headline doesn't grab them, the first 5 seconds doesn't grab them, title doesn't grab them, it doesn't
You don't have the
matter.
right
Like none,
content to go
none of
with
the rest
it.
of it will matter. So
Um, what's interesting about copywriting, I mean, basically, when we're doing communities, they're almost all text based. So I'm like,
Yep.
you guys have to learn, like our employees who say you have to learn how to be at least a decent copywriting, because to me, copywriting isn't just using words to sell someone something. Copywriting means putting myself in your shoes to understanding what motivates you and then using that data to figure out what words I can use to get you to buy my product or to buy into my cause.
Yep.
Like we're talking like, like if I'm trying to get someone to believe
And
that
that's the next part that we're
this
bringing to
particular
Bistro Buddy when we're
action is
bringing
bad or
polls.
why you should buy an
So we
electric
get to
car or why you
understand
should
what you
not.
need.
if you're going to build things,
If you're going
then you need to kind of go through this kind of set of skills that you need to acquire. One is writing the code or having someone that can write the code. But then it's like launching something, tracking the analytics, it's optimizing, it's figuring out how to get the retention rates up. It's all of it that incrementally builds on each other. And you kind of have to enjoy the craft and kind of love the grind, because it's hard work doing anything, taking anything from zero to something,
It's
whether
really
it's your
hard
full-time
work.
job or whether it's a hobby. It's a grind, and it's
We
and
we interviewed Mr. Beast. If you don't have like a
makes
13-year-old
sense.
child, you probably don't know who Mr. Beast is, but to every 13-year-old in America, Mr. Beast is like Brad Pitt or whatever. I mean, he's just
He's
like,
the top YouTuber in the world.
yeah, he's the top YouTuber in the world with 100 million subscribers. So if you have like a 12-year-old, they would like love Mr. Beast. We had him on the podcast, and he's 24, I think, and he's obsessed. He's got this like Elon Musk, Bezos like
Obsessed.
vibe where
He's
I remember I
obsessed.
asked him something about like Harry Potter or like the president or something like pop culture related, and he like didn't know what I was talking about. And I was like, Jimmy, you don't know anything about this. He goes, no, when I was 15, I decided I'm going to be the biggest YouTuber in the world. And so if a topic isn't related to YouTube, I really don't know much about it. I don't pay attention to it. And someone in the comments, a lot of people wrote, how sad. That's so sad that this kid only cares about YouTube. And I told you about that story, and you had an interesting reaction.
Yeah, which is, I think, most kind of the way to get something accomplished or achieve success, however you define that. You have to sort
Oh,
of kind of
it's good.
channel your obsession. That says, okay, I
Channel
care
your
about this
obsession.
thing deeply enough that the time just flies by. I'm just going to do it. And I think one of the messages is around. So we'll take half a step back. So we talked about skills, and a lot of people, myself included, there was a time when I was like, oh, public speaking. Like, that's not my talent. That's not my
Definitely
thing.
not my
But
talent
as it turns out,
either.
skills are learnable. All talent really defines is how quickly you will acquire a skill. So if you have a talent for music, you will learn music
I
faster than
definitely
the
have
average
talent for
person. If you
music.
don't have talent for music, you can still learn music. We can learn instrument. It might just take you longer. And so the kind of message to all of you would be, pick which skills are going to move you in the direction you want to move into. And in order to kind of do that thing, you're going to have to obsess about it. And the only way to obsess about it is you have to enjoy it enough that even though to the outside people it looks like you're doing a grind, like, why would he do that? He doesn't have to do that. It's like, I do that because I love to
Don't
do
have to
that.
do
That's the
this.
stuff I enjoy. So it doesn't feel like a grind to
Exactly. It
me.
doesn't
That's
feel
just
like a
who I
grind.
am.
Have you met other people that are as successful as you that aren't obsessed like you are?
Everybody's obsessed. They are. Like, there's like, it's, I've never met a founder that isn't obsessed with something. And it sometimes will vary as to what they're obsessed with, but it just takes that weird kind of it's a genetic flaw maybe to some degree that causes
Definitely
you
a
to.
genetic flaw.
And the thing you have to sort of learn that I've had to learn is around kind of narrowing your aperture. So it's okay to obsess over things. You want them to be productive things that you're obsessing over. But you
Very
can't have too
productive.
many, because if everything you do you're obsessing, you're kind of digging into, you're kind of spreading it too thin, you're never going to get really, really good. So the other thing I've learned across my career is that you shouldn't focus on your weaknesses, the things that you're not good at. Like people try to catch it up. It's like, oh, I'm not good at this, so I'm going to get to like some acceptable level of something. No. Pick the things that you are
Really,
really good at and get great at those things, because that's the thing that
really
will
good at
separate
it.
you from the pack, right? It's like the fact that you're in the top 1% or top 0.1% of people at this thing, or some unique combination of things often is
What are some things that you're bad at?
oh, it's an infinitely long list. Can't dance, can't sing,
But
can't
things
make
where,
I can
like,
yeah.
dance.
you think some people
Can't
will be
really
like,
sing,
"Hey,
but
man,
I
you
can't
try.
manage people.
you stink at this. You should get better."
I can't,
And
so
your
there are
reaction was,
no.
no."
Well, so I'll give you like a true example, not widely known, but there are 7,000 people that work at HubSpot, company 16 years old. I have exactly 0 direct reports. I've never had a direct report at HubSpot. And I could not be more committed. It's not a lack of commitment. I'm not doing other things. It's like I'm all in on HubSpot. But when we started the
All in.
company, Brian and I had this conversation. I'm like, first of all, we had to decide who's going to be CEO. And he wanted to be CEO, and I didn't want to be CEO. It's like, okay, that works out great. Awesome. And then we talked, and like the next leap I made, I hadn't thought of it. This was not pre-planned. I'm like, and also, Brian, I'm not going to manage anybody. He's kind of paused, like, what do you mean? It's like, I'm just not going to manage anybody. I'm not going to
To
have any direct
manage
reports, no one-on-one
themselves.
meetings. I'm not going to review
Hire the
anybody.
right
I
people.
don't
They
hire
manage
anybody. I don't fire
themselves.
anybody. I'm not going to manage anybody. And
Bring in
he's
the
like,
right
okay.
team.
I'm like, no, you don't understand. There's going to be a day when our VP of engineering quits or something happens. Like, Dharmesh, you need to step in and just take over this team until we find a replacement. And we're going to say, no, Dharmesh doesn't manage people. That's going to be, like, we're going to stick to this. We're going to have the
Did that
conviction.
make him angry?
Has never made him angry. No, I think, and he knows and I know that
But you're still working as hard.
yeah, just not, if not harder, right? I'm just channeling it towards things. So I had the choice, right? I could say, oh, I'm reasonably smart. I could spend a bunch of time getting passably okay at management. And I didn't want to spend 10, 15 years of my life getting passably okay at something. I'm like, okay, well, what could I do with those calories, that time and energy, if I just focus on the things that I think I'm pretty good at and just get
Pretty
better
good
at those
at
things?
What do you think you're
building
one of the best at?
applications and websites and
I'm good at building
communities.
products, like just building things, and just understanding customer needs and kind of digging in and iterating on products. So I'm going to simplify it down. This copywriting once again. So I like to write content, which I think I've gotten pretty good at. Write code, which I've been good at. And now I'm going to right wrongs, which is I'm going to find the things that are broken in the world, not macro things like new energy sources. It's like,
Broken
oh,
things in the
like the
world.
Wordle example.
That's
It's
what
like,
I'm
hey, Wordle's
doing.
cool, and it's great that it's popular, but these 3 things are wrong, and the New York Times, who acquired Wordle, is never going to fix these things. It's like, I'm going to go fix that because I
I'm
can.
going to fix it.
Anyway, so
Say it
that's
can be
I'm good
fixed.
at identifying
Your
problems
fault.
and then using
But
software to solve them.
I think that you're obviously special. I'm not entirely sure if you're self-aware or not of that. So if
He's
someone
totally aware of
is
trust.
like, well, that's great that you're obsessed. That's a wonderful way for you to live.
Yep.
I want more balance. I want to go to work at 9 and leave at 5 or earlier, and I want to hang
I'm
out with
up
my
at 4
family,
a.m.
and I want to go for walks,
Yeah,
which is cool too.
it is cool.
And what do you say to them when they say, "Well,
It's
I don't
cool.
have anything I'm
Have
obsessed
fun.
about"?
I'm
That's
having fun
okay.
too.
And I would argue that you're obsessed with your friends and your family in a lifestyle, and there's nothing wrong with that. Those are
It's the
choices.
most important part.
I think when people get themselves into trouble is when they choose a particular path. For instance, let's say, like if you talk to Olympic athletes, I don't think anyone's going to contest the fact that Olympic athletes work really, really hard. Right? They are completely. You have to be all in on that thing just to be able to be there, let alone win. And we don't question that. We don't say, oh, like, well, that's kind of a terrible life. They made that choice, right? What goes, I think, where people go wrong is like if you want the recognition of Olympic athlete, like you want that, but then it's like, well, but I only want to like do this and that. It's like, okay, well, neither choice is wrong, but it's picking a path and expecting the results from the other. That's where people, I think, go astray sometimes.
Something that I like
Not a
about
popular opinion, but it's true.
that's all right.
Yeah.
What I like about you is that you almost turn things into a game. And I don't know if you purposely do that, but did anyone see his talk that he did earlier?
My keynote yesterday, anybody?
Sorry, yesterday.
All right.
There's a couple other good points.
Thank you. I was wondering. It's like, okay, well, yeah.
So he had, I think you said, it was, how long?
Might skip to him.
What's that? I'm sorry?
It was 20 minutes?
24 minutes is what it was.
24 minutes with 75 slides and 90 clicks on the button.
Yep.
And I was like, that's kind of a weird, like, thing to memorize. And you go, yeah, well, I figured it out that when I say this word, I hit click, and I had it down, and I was like, okay, tell me more about that. That's kind of interesting. That's pretty obsessive that that you know this. So do you want to? And he filled me in on his process for what he did for this talk. And this is a really good example of obsession.
With something you see at the same time.
It's obsession and skill building. So it's
skill building and obsession. Yeah.
So it's a good story. I think you'll enjoy this. Let me tell you what happens when I prepare for the keynote that you just saw yesterday. It takes a bunch of time. So I do practice runs with live audiences on Zoom. I'll have it recorded. I'll have it transcribed. That means I get all the words down. Then I'll have it annotated that says, oh, here's all the times in the talk that people laughed. So I'll have a hashtag laugh in there. And then I'll use a Python program that analyzes it to say, here's how many times people laughed. Here's the longest duration that happened where nobody laughed. And it's like, oh, 2 minutes went by in this practice run and nobody laughed. I'm going to either shorten it or put something funny in there. And because, like, the name of the game, if you're going to do that, especially, kind of in that slot, we have short attention spans. You have to kind of engage the audience, and you have to keep them. Otherwise, because I have this, Connect.com announcement I'm making at the end of it. It's like if I've lost 95% of the audience, it's like none of the rest of it will matter.
Did you tell them what LPM means?
Oh, yeah, so I measure the laughs per minute, which is what stand-up comedians do, to say, okay, how many laughs, and I have a measurement. I'm like, okay, it needs to be denser than that.
And you created the program that
wrote a program that measures it and measures the time duration and things. But the moral of this story is not that you should do that. The moral of the story is if I can get up on a stage in front of 10,000 people and do that as an engineer, most things are learnable. So if you just dissect whatever it is you're trying to learn. So in my case, once I realized I was not going to be able to finagle my way out of doing the keynote at Inbound, it's not a delegatable thing. I tried, by the way. Just like, Brian, I'm not going to do public speaking. No, you have to do that.
I was.
Then you just break it down, right? It's like you say, okay, well, here are the things I have to do. I have to be able to stand up on stage and not pass out. Okay. I have to put words together in sentences. Okay, I'm going to have slides. I spent a year learning about visual design and how do you create slides. I spent 2 years on comedy and studying stand-up comics, reading books on humor writing. It's like you can break that problem down, put it all together again, and be pretty good. You can build a skill. I mean, it's not...
How many employees does HubSpot have?
7,000. Yeah.
How do you get your coworkers to have that same energy? I mean, I don't think that the expectation is that everyone's going to be as obsessed as you are, which is totally cool and fine.
Yep.
But how do you teach your peers and your coworker or even your family members where you want to encourage them to be this like growth-driven person and open to skill building and open-mindedness?
Yeah, it's I'm not sure that's necessarily. There's two things I think we do well. One is finding the thing that people do enjoy doing, that they want to build that skill set and getting them into that role, and then giving them the option to kind of fail, right? It's like, okay, we'll let you try new things. We'll let you do stuff because that's the way you actually learn is by doing it, and we don't expect you to get it right all the time. But then, and this is just comes down to hiring. You have to recruit people that are constitutionally incapable of not caring, and that's a trait. That's the people have that. It's like, oh well.
Brian Halligan tweeted that. I tweeted out, what should I ask you? And he said, ask him how he hires people because he hires people. I think he said he hires so many creators that have layers to them.
Yep.
Layers. And I guess that's one of the layers. What questions do you ask during an interview?
So many layers
helps you understand that.
I can't
what do
even
you look at?
start to explain it. That's why
I just ask them what they do in their spare time. If they've had infinite amount of time, what would they work on? Or I ask them what they want to learn, if they can pick up any skill. Ask them what they read, what they watch. It's just like, to me, like
over
your outcome
everything,
is a function
every
of two things.
detail.
One is your inputs, what's coming in, what
She's never
knowledge
stopped
is getting
learning.
into your head, and second is just a number of iterations. So you show me someone that can iterate on anything 100 times, and they will beat whoever it was that did 5 iterations, even though that person that did 5 iterations spent a bunch of time on those individual iterations. It's just reps, as people that work out would say.
So I have a similar thing
over here.
So when we interview people, let's say there's 3 people and I'm a fourth person. The 3 people oftentimes will ask about what skills makes the skill thing. And then I'll come in and I always say, I only care about the bottom fourth of the resume, assuming the skill stuff has been met. the bottom fourth of the resume. So like what school you went to, what you studied. And I don't actually care about what school they went to, but it says, oh, I majored in philosophy.
On my own
What
school.
I'll say is, what was your favorite philosophy course and why?
Yep.
And the reason I'm thinking is, or I'm asking that is, if you spent 4 years and however much money you spent and all this time, and you can't entertain me with a story and show me some passion about something that you learned, even if it's some entry level philosophy, I don't even care what it is. If you can't fire me up about this thing that you dedicated 4 years to,
Yep.
I think to myself, then you're just not. I don't want to be around you. You're not a winner.
Yep.
And I define winning as someone who like has some passion and can like ignite my fire a little bit. And I don't want to be around that. And I call it the bottom fourth. And it's a very similar thing to what you're talking about.
I think we're in downtown. We're going to wrap up.
We are
Closing out. Core messages. Identify the skills you want to learn. Make the connections you need to make. You have an amazing opportunity here. You're at this event, which is all about community. Even if you're an introvert like me, it's actually possible to chat with people in the hallways and such. And you don't have to be obsessed. I'm not suggesting everyone should have that.
No, you kind of have to be
obsessive behavior.
I don't know.
But you do have to engage. Life is short. Figure out what you actually enjoy and kind of dig in. That's the way to kind of
and
make
a lot of these talks have focused on transparency. A lot of the speakers here have been incredibly transparent. You've been super transparent. And
I think
transparency is a great word, but I like the word weird, and I just want people to embrace weirdness and like whatever makes them unique, and just go all in on that. And that's almost that's transparency and authenticity. I think are cousins, and I prefer using embrace the weird. And so that's something that I think you do really well, and I admire that so much about you. So thanks for doing this. This has been an awesome day.
So we'll leave it on that note. And I just felt that there was a lot of really good points here, and that I relate to being the founder of Bistro Buddy, where I'm going with this community, trying to make things better, tackle big problems, and provide solutions for people, that need them. And that's you, and that's you intertwining and being part of this community, whether you're a small business or just somebody that loves food and drink and are going to events and having fun, getting involved. Thank you so much.